let's say I gave you the secret to getting ahead of 99% of people. Would you do it? Or would you say, oh, that's really interesting, and then click on the next video? That question is actually really important because we are living in a very unusual time. A time when, in a matter of minutes, you can encounter life-changing advice. You even have YouTubers like me trying to sell you more information, and yet it doesn't have the power to change you. The reason is the commodities that it takes to get ahead or not be left behind have changed. Let's stop beating around the bush here. What sets apart the top 1% is they're capable of turning information into action. And not only acting on that, but knowing when not to act. And until you learn how to do that, which is what this video is about, specifically information into action, you will remain in the large percentile. And my favorite part is it's not hard. Think about it. Our world is bloated with entertainment and short attention spans. The bar is about as low as it has ever been. So without further ado, how do we turn information into action? When most people try to turn information into action, they forget to use one of the most powerful tools that we have, the power of compounded action, meaning progress is not linear, not even close. If you go up to a football player and you ask, how did you get so good at football? It's probably going to be really hard to answer that because there's rarely one thing that they did. They understand that little things compound and they stack up. Another way to say this is little actions times time equal big changes. We have to eradicate this idea that action has to be big and dramatic and visible. Most of our life is doing boring, mundane, little things that aren't impressive. So when we encounter information that we want to turn into action, we often imagine the end result. We see ourselves public speaking with confidence and vigor and forget to boil it down to the actual starting point, which is usually little, consistent actions that compound over time to incredible heights. Ooh, okay, so I just gave you a lot of information. Now, if I'm a good teacher, I'll give you a method to turn that information into action. Whatever the information is that you're trying to put into action, start incredibly small, laughably small, so small that you would have to be crazy to not do it. And what we're doing is we're boiling this down to the first action step, not action step number 12 that looks really impressive. No, we're gonna boil it down to the boring, mundane, easy first action step. And that's where most people go completely wrong because it's not impressive. But that's where it starts. Once you start there, keep asking, what's the next action step? Okay, so we know the power of compounding our actions and starting small, but how do we make a plan to take information and turn it into action? We need to do this, the 3 whats of learning. A while ago, a friend of mine told me a truth that he lives by. I found it so impactful that I wrote a whole newsletter on it. And if you're curious, you can read it up here. But what do we do when we encounter something like that? When we aren't sure how to take this information that we acquired and turn it into an action plan? There's 3 questions that we can ask to kind of iron this out. Those 3 questions are, what does this mean for me? What's the obstacle? And what will I do? The reason I love these questions is it puts the responsibility where it needs to be, which is on you. You are the one responsible to take action, to make a plan and to execute it, or to decide that this is something that should not be acted on. Because what something means to you might be very different from what it means to me. And this is the essence of what it means to be a good processor and a good thinker. Here's how I know this. A lot of people on the internet are telling you how to do something. including me. The problem is that their plan of action is based around their obstacles, and those might not be the same that you have. They might not work in your situation. So instead of trying this person's plan and this person's plan and this person's plan, learn to create your own solution. Because sometimes we can get a general framework of how to solve something, but within that framework, there's multiple ways that you can do it. I'll show you what I mean. For optimal health, human beings require at least 7 hours of sleep per night. That's a lovely piece of information. So what does that mean for me? It means for me to be at my optimal performance, I need sufficient sleep, which is actually closer to 8 or 8.5 hours. It also means that I need to change something because that's not happening. Okay, so what's the obstacle? After all, if there wasn't something blocking us, we would have already done it. And the obstacle is me not keeping myself to a consistent schedule. A lack of discipline. So with all of that, what will I do? You could also swap that out and say, what's my plan of action? My plan of action is to identify the first action step that kickstarts my whole evening routine, which for me is taking a shower at 8:30 p.m. If I nail that, I'm 95% more likely to be in bed on time. Now that was a pretty thrown together process, but you can kind of see how by asking those questions, I can create my own solution, as it were. I identify what my obstacles are and how to solve them. Now, contrast that with me browsing YouTube, listening to everyone else's plan about how to get sufficient sleep. It might work because sometimes things overlap, but it might also not work because their obstacles are likely very different than mine. And in the same way, at the end of this video and every video of mine that you watch, I hope you'll be able to build your own solution and plan. Hopefully mine will help, especially the last one, which is more universal, but ultimately, you are the best equipped to change your life. The power of habit stacking. Okay, so imagine that your best friend calls and says, hey, I just got 2 free tickets for a cruise in the Bahamas. Are you in? What's gonna be your first question other than, did you get scammed? It's probably gonna be something like, what are the dates? That way you can make sure that there's no conflicts, and then you can make a plan and make it happen. The same thing applies to when we are putting information into action. By now we've learned how to make a bit of a plan, how to iron out, is this something that I need to take action on? But unless we identify when we will do something, it often doesn't happen. We can know the what, the how, and the why, but without a when, it's very difficult to execute it consistently. In fact, this piece of information came from Ali Abdaal's book. If it's something small, he recommends finding something in your day that doesn't really move, like a routine or a habit, and then place that action right before or after whatever that thing is. So taking your vitamins before eating breakfast, for example. But then if it's something that takes a bit more planning, identify a duration for it. For example, between 2 and 4 p.m., I will do X. The reason is something that we are all well aware of, and that is that we can't wait for a convenient time. That's why we have to make a time. There's also quite a bit more time in the spaces between things than we realize. Matthew Dix is an author, and he tells a story about when he was meeting up with someone who wanted to become an author, and he told her that she was 7 minutes late for their meeting. And his point was that in those 7 minutes, he wrote 9 good sentences. And then he told her that an average novel has between 5,000 and 10,000 sentences. He said, every sentence I write gets me closer. Today, I got 9 sentences closer. Something else that Matthew Dix recommends is whatever the thing is that you're taking action towards, figure out what you can do towards that thing in 10 minutes. Because first of all, we can do quite a lot in 10 minutes. And second, we have so many 10-minute chunks throughout our day that we aren't taking advantage of. So whether you link the action to an existing habit or a particular span of time, clearly define when you are going to do something. Now, I'm young and I don't have this all figured out, but the one thing I have noticed is there is a pattern. The ones who don't learn to act stand still and others pass them by. I've watched this happen even in my very short lifespan. It's brutal to watch people get left behind by their peers. If you don't want that to be you, I highly recommend you find a way to do this in your own life. I've designed a little bit of an exercise that will take the things from this video and turn it into a step-by-step guide just to get you started. So I'm gonna go through this, and if you decide that you wanna find another way to do this, or if you disagree with me completely and you think this is irrelevant, please tell me in the comments. I would love to be corrected on this. Anyway, here's the exercise. Number 1, identify one thing you want to do that you've been putting off. Number 2, break it down to the first action step. Number 3, ask yourself the 3 what questions. Number 4 is dedicate 10 to 20 minutes to that thing, whatever it is, for at least 10 days. Number 5, link it to an existing habit or duration. Number 6, review your progress at the end of 10 days. And then number 7, if you want to take it a step farther, comment what you will be taking action on, and then update us how it went after 10 days.